7 times I married the same man. And 7 times, for the sake of his one true love, my husband divorced me. The first time we married, he told me, for the rest of my life, I will love only you. But whenever she came back to town, his words would change. Can't you be more understanding? Do you really want Avery to be branded a homewrecker? The first time we divorced, I slit my wrists in a desperate attempt to keep him. They rushed me to the hospital, but he never came. Not once. The third time, I debased myself, applying for a job as his assistant just for the chance to see him more often. By the 6th time, I had learned to pack my things quietly and move out of our home without a fight. My hysteria, my retreats, my humiliations, all of it earned me his punctual remarriages and his predictable betrayals. Until this time. This time, after hearing that his precious Avery was returning, I was the one who handed him the divorce papers. He set a date for our remarriage, just like all the other times. But he didn't know that this time I was leaving for good. Avery's back. We should get a divorce. I slid the signed papers across the table to my husband, Julian Croft. For a moment, he looked stunned, but he recovered quickly, signing his name with practiced ease. This was the first time I had initiated it, but he still made the same casual promise he always did. She'll be gone in a month. We'll get married again then. In the past, those words would have sent me spiraling, desperate for reassurance. I would have demanded he swear an oath, sign a contract. But this time, I felt nothing. No desire to respond at all. Gemma, are you listening to me? Julian's brow furrowed, annoyed by my silence. I forced a nod. Yes. My hands didn't stop moving, folding clothes and placing them neatly into a suitcase. Julian always kept his word about remarrying me. He was known in his industry for his integrity. That much was certain. It was almost as if we weren't husband and wife, but 2 parties in a contract, periodically terminating and renewing our agreement. The marriage and divorce certificates were just paperwork. 2 a year. Every year. To date, I had signed 12. I remembered, on our wedding day, he promised he would never be unfaithful during our marriage. And he had kept that promise. After all, once we were divorced, he was free to be with whomever he wanted. The only cost was my reputation. I was known throughout our social circle as his plaything, a woman he could summon and dismiss at will. My unusual calm this time unnerved him. The memory of my past hysterics, of the times I had hurt myself, was still vivid in his mind. He watched me pack faster and more efficiently than ever before and said, a little defensively, I can be the one to move out this time. The snap of my suitcase latch cut him off. Already arranged it with my friend. I'll stay with her for a few days. A flicker of recognition crossed Julian's face, and his expression soured. Don't tell me you're playing hard to get again. Are you going to sneak into the company disguised as an assistant to watch me? Gemma, can't you get a life? Are you really that incapable of living without a man? I understood his subtext perfectly. He just didn't want me showing up at his office and disturbing his precious time with Avery. She was only in town for a short while, after all, and he wanted her by his side in her role as his special assistant. After our second divorce, I had successfully applied for that assistant position. I had walked into his office holding his favorite latte, my heart full of hope, only to find him locked in a passionate kiss with Avery, who was perched on his lap. I lost control and attacked her. Julian slapped me so hard I fell to the floor. A crowd of employees gathered outside, gawking. They all thought I was still the CEO's wife, and their gazes on Avery were filled with contempt. To protect Avery's reputation, Julian ignored my tearful pleas, snatched my purse, and dumped its contents onto the floor. The deep red divorce certificate lay there like a gaping wound, screaming the truth of our relationship to the entire world. From then on, every time we divorced, Julian made sure to announce it publicly. Everyone knew Julian loved Avery, and everyone knew I was the shameless one, clinging to him, refusing to let go. But this time, Julian's fears were unfounded. I picked up my suitcase without hesitation. Don't worry. I won't bother you again. He eyed me with suspicion. But as I opened the door and stepped out, he called after me, a hint of urgency in his voice. We're getting remarried on the 13th of next month. Don't you forget. I froze for a second. What a coincidence. The 13th was the day I was leaving the country. I told myself over and over that this time would be different. That after sliding those divorce papers across the table, after watching Julian sign them without hesitation, I had finally reached the end of the cycle. For once, I was the one in control. But old habits are difficult to break, and even though I packed my suitcase with an unusual calm, my heart still carried the bruises of every past humiliation. 7 divorces do not disappear from memory just because a signature dries on a piece of paper. I spent the first nights away from Julian at Maya's apartment. She welcomed me with open arms, teasing me for bringing half my wardrobe, but never once questioning my need for space and safety. Maya was a sharp contrast to Julian. She never judged me for my silences, never demanded that I explain myself when I wanted to curl up on the couch and say nothing. Instead, she turned up the music, brought me beer, and forced me to eat greasy noodles with her at midnight until we laughed ourselves to sleep. It felt like the life of a college student again, free and careless, but beneath that laughter was the heaviness of my reality. I had been trapped for years in a cycle of remarriage and divorce, like a tragic stage play where the script never changed. Everyone in Julian's circle knew me as the desperate ex-wife who never let go, the woman clinging to a man who clearly loved someone else. The humiliation had been unbearable in the past, but now that I looked at it from a distance, it felt almost absurd. How had I allowed myself to play the same role 7 times? Julian still reached out, though not as often as before. He was confident, almost smug, that I would eventually come back. It was his routine, after all, to promise Avery a short romance, then to return to me with the excuse that she had left. He thought this was just another round. But I knew this time was different, and that gave me strength. 3 weeks before my departure, Maya convinced me to go out for dinner. It was supposed to be a simple evening, nothing fancy, just the 2 of us sharing food and talking about where I would go once I left the country. I told her about my dream of starting fresh somewhere new, away from the gossip and the whispers that followed me everywhere here. But fate has a cruel sense of humor. Just as our food was about to be served, the door of the restaurant opened, and in walked Julian with Avery on his arm. They were laughing together, so close that anyone would think they had been married for years. Julian's eyes found me immediately. His smile faltered for the briefest moment, and I saw the flicker of recognition in his gaze. Avery, however, clung to him more tightly, wrapping her arms around his neck with a smile so sweet it turned my stomach. "Gemma, what a coincidence," Avery said, her tone dripping with false innocence. "You are here for dinner too?" I felt Maya stiffen beside me, her body already shifting as if she was ready to leap to my defense. I pressed her hand down under the table and forced a calm smile. "Yes. What a coincidence." Julian immediately stepped in front of Avery, shielding her like a knight protecting his princess. He still remembered the day I lost control in his office, the day I attacked Avery after seeing her in his arms. He thought I would repeat it. He did not realize that I no longer had the energy, or even the desire, to fight. Seeing my composure seemed to embolden Avery. Her smile widened as she leaned into Julian. "So sorry, Gemma, but Julian promised to book the entire restaurant just for me tonight. You will have to find somewhere else to eat." She tugged on his arm, her voice high and childish. "Isn't that right, Julian? Say something or Gemma will think I am targeting her on purpose." For a moment, his eyes locked on mine. I saw the hesitation there, the uncertainty. But just as quickly, he turned away and nodded, offering no defense, no explanation. His silence cut deeper than any insult. Maya started to rise from her chair, ready to throw a punch, but I stopped her with a gentle hand. "It's fine," I whispered. "We can go somewhere else." Julian's gaze followed me as I stood up, and for the first time in years, I felt that he was the one left unsettled. He expected me to fight, to cry, to cause a scene. Instead, I took Maya's hand and walked away without another word. He called my name once, but I pretended not to hear. That night, lying awake in Maya's apartment, I replayed the moment over and over. It had been so easy to walk away. No screaming, no begging. Just silence. It was as if a chain had snapped inside me. Julian, however, did not take my silence well. The next evening, he sent me a video call request. My finger hovered over the decline button for a long time, but in the end, curiosity won. I answered, though I switched to audio only. "Why just audio?" he asked, his tone already annoyed. "I am not wearing makeup," I replied automatically, and immediately regretted it. It sounded like an excuse from the old me, the one who wanted to look perfect for him. He chuckled. "We have been married long enough. Is there any version of you I have not seen?" His flirtatious tone made my skin crawl. "What do you want, Julian?" I asked coldly. He paused, then sighed. "HR told me you resigned." I did. Silence stretched between us. He tried to make a joke about me choosing to be an assistant when I could have been a CEO's wife, but it fell flat. Finally, he muttered, "I'm sorry. I was just worried that if we stayed married, people would gossip about Avery." I nearly laughed. So I should be the one to become the laughingstock? To carry all the shame so she can smile in peace? He tried to backtrack, but I was already done. "If there is nothing else, I'm hanging up." "Wait," he said quickly. "The 12th is our anniversary. There is a concert, The Remnants. I know you want to go. Let's go together." For a fleeting moment, my heart stirred, remembering how much I loved that band. But before I could answer, Avery's voice floated through the speaker. "Julian, honey, I forgot my towel. Can you bring it to me?" The sound of her voice was like a dagger. I could almost see her smirk, hear the door slam behind him as he went to her. And then I did hear it, the muffled sound of their kiss, the thud of the bathroom door closing. I hung up. The next days passed quickly. Maya and I filled them with cheap drinks, late-night food runs, and laughter that kept the darkness away. I stopped tracking Julian's movements, stopped checking his social media, stopped caring where Avery was or what she was doing. But Julian was not ready to let go. Rumors spread that he and Avery had fought at a gala, that he stormed out and left her humiliated. Some said it was because of me. I laughed when I heard it. Even if it was true, what did it matter? Their relationship was theirs to ruin, not mine to obsess over. The night before I was set to leave the country, Julian called again. His voice was different this time, desperate. "I have the tickets. Let's meet tonight, okay? It's our anniversary. You cannot say no to me today." I almost told him that it was not our wedding anniversary, only the anniversary of our 4th remarriage, a detail he would never remember. But in the end, I agreed. Not for him. For myself. I wanted to see the Remnants one last time. I waited outside the concert hall that night. I waited and waited, but Julian never showed. Instead, a voice message arrived. His voice was guilt-ridden, the sound of Avery's laughter faint in the background. "I'm so sorry, Gemma. Avery felt sick. I had to take her to the hospital. We will have plenty more anniversaries when she leaves tomorrow. I promise." My heart went cold. I opened social media, and there it was, Avery's smiling face next to Julian's, both of them at the concert I had been waiting to attend with him. It was the final straw. 7 divorces, 7 broken promises, 7 betrayals. I had been a fool every time. But not this time. Not anymore. The next morning, at 7, I checked in for my flight. At 8, I boarded. At 9, my phone rang one last time. It was Julian. I blocked his number. The plane took off, and for the first time in years, I felt truly free. The hum of the airplane engines faded into the background as I stared out the window, watching clouds blur past. For the first time in years, I was physically removed from Julian, from Avery, from the cycle of humiliation I had allowed myself to endure. Yet freedom felt both exhilarating and terrifying. My hands trembled slightly as I adjusted the thin blanket over my lap. Could I really do it? Could I live a life without him, without the gravitational pull that had kept me bound to him for so long? I landed in a country where no one knew me, where no one whispered behind my back or rolled their eyes at the mention of my name. It was liberating. I stayed with Maya's cousin for the first few weeks, a woman who welcomed me warmly despite being practically a stranger. She gave me a small room with faded wallpaper and a bed that creaked when I turned, but it was enough. More than enough. Every day, I walked the city streets, breathing in the new air, letting my feet take me wherever they wanted. For the first time, I had no schedule dictated by Julian's whims, no demands to be at his side, no desperate waiting for a phone call or a message. I felt invisible here, and I loved it. But invisibility does not erase the past. At night, when the city quieted and I lay alone in that small room, memories invaded. I thought of the first time Julian and I had met, the way his smile had disarmed me, the way his promises had sounded so genuine. I thought of the countless times I had believed him, only to be cast aside when Avery appeared. 7 times I had let him do this to me. 7. One evening, Maya called me. She was cheerful, but her words carried an undertone of worry. "Julian has been looking for you," she said. "He even came to my apartment." My chest tightened. "What did you tell him?" "That I had no idea where you went," she replied firmly. "And that even if I did, I would never tell him." "But Gemma, he looks. Desperate. I have never seen him like this. I laughed bitterly. Desperate because Avery is gone again, no doubt. He only ever remembers me when she leaves. Still, her words unsettled me. For so long, I had been the one chasing him. Now, he was chasing me. I told myself it did not matter, that it was too late. But the seed of doubt was planted, and it grew quietly in the corners of my mind. Days turned into weeks. I found a job at a small cafe. The pay was modest, but the routine grounded me. Each morning, I brewed coffee, smiled at strangers, and wiped tables until my back ached. It was honest work, unglamorous, but it was mine. I was no longer Julian's shadow. Then, one afternoon, as I stepped out of the cafe with a tray of dirty cups, I froze. Across the street, leaning casually against a car, was Julian. My heart dropped to my stomach. He had found me. He looked almost the same as always, impeccably dressed, but his eyes were different. Tired. Hollow. He crossed the street with long strides, and before I could retreat inside, he was standing in front of me. "Gemma," he said, his voice rougher than I remembered. "You really thought you could leave without telling me?" I forced myself to stay calm. "I already told you. We are done. There is nothing left between us." He shook his head, almost frantically. "No. You do not understand. Avery left. She left me for someone else. I was a fool, Gemma. I should have never divorced you. Not once, not ever." I stared at him, unable to believe the words. "Do you expect me to pity you? To take you back because she finally did to you what you always did to me?" He winced, as if my words were knives. "I know I hurt you. I know I destroyed everything. But you are the only one who ever stayed, Gemma. You were always there. Always." Anger surged through me, hotter than ever. Exactly. I was always there. Like a fool. Waiting for scraps of affection, for crumbs of loyalty. You threw me away 7 times, Julian. 7. Do you think I am so broken that I will let you do it again? For a moment, he was silent. His eyes searched mine desperately, but I gave him nothing. The calm I had discovered within myself was stronger than his pleas. Finally, he whispered, "I love you, Gemma." I almost laughed. "You love the fact that I never gave up on you. You love the certainty of me, the guarantee that no matter how many times you betrayed me, I would still be here. But that is not love. That is convenience." I turned away, but he grabbed my wrist. "Please. Just one more chance." I yanked my hand free. "No, Julian. There are no more chances. Not anymore." He looked at me as if the ground beneath him had vanished. For the first time, I saw him powerless. I walked away, leaving him standing in the street. My heart was racing, but I did not look back. That night, I cried, not out of longing, but out of release. The tears felt cleansing, washing away years of pain. Julian continued to linger in the city for days, waiting outside the cafe, sending flowers I never accepted, leaving voicemails I never returned. Each attempt only strengthened my resolve. Then came the final blow. One evening, Maya called again, her voice tight with urgency. "Gemma, you need to know. Julian. He is in the hospital." I froze. "What happened?" "He drank too much. The doctors say he collapsed in his office. They called me because your number was still listed as his emergency contact." I closed my eyes, torn between fury and pity. Even after everything, he still had me listed as the person to call. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to let him face the consequences of his choices alone. But another part, the part that still remembered the man I had once loved, could not turn away. Against my better judgment, I went to the hospital. When I walked into his room, Julian looked pale and frail, nothing like the powerful man I once knew. His eyes lit up when he saw me, and he whispered, "I knew you would come." I stood at the foot of his bed, arms crossed. "Do not mistake this for forgiveness. I came because no one else would." He nodded weakly. "That is what I always feared. That in the end, no one would be there. Except you." I wanted to hate him. I wanted to scream. But all I felt was sorrow. Not for myself, but for the hollow man lying before me, who had thrown away everything for a love that was never real. I stayed for only a few minutes before leaving. Outside, under the night sky, I took a deep breath. I realized then that pity was the last thread tying me to him, and even that was unraveling. Julian had become a ghost of my past, and I was finally ready to live without him. The night I left Julian's hospital room, I felt something shift inside me. For years, I had lived with the weight of his promises, his betrayals, his endless cycle of marriage and divorce. But now, as I walked under the glow of the city lights, I understood something simple but powerful: he no longer had any hold over me. I returned to my small rented room and sat by the window, staring at the quiet street below. I thought of the girl I used to be, the one who cried herself to sleep, who clung to scraps of affection, who begged for loyalty that never came. That girl was gone. The days that followed confirmed what I already knew. Julian tried to reach me again. He sent letters, flowers, even gifts he thought might stir nostalgia: an old book we had read together, a necklace he once gave me after our third remarriage, a framed photo of our first wedding. But each package I received only deepened my resolve. I returned everything unopened. Maya was my constant support. She cheered when I tore up his letters, laughed when I deleted his voicemails, and reminded me that every refusal was a victory. "You are finally free, Gemma," she said one night as we clinked glasses. "Do not waste that freedom." And I didn't. I threw myself into building a new life. The cafe job was only the beginning. I enrolled in evening classes, learning skills I had once abandoned when Julian decided I should focus solely on being his wife. I worked long hours, studied late, and discovered a strength I never believed I had. Slowly, the shadows of my past began to fade. But Julian was not ready to let go. Months later, he showed up again, this time thinner, older, his confidence worn down to a fragile shell. He waited outside my apartment one evening, his eyes pleading. "Gemma," he said softly. "I do not want Avery. I do not want anyone else. I want you. Only you." His words might once have set my heart racing. Now, they sounded hollow, stripped of meaning by years of repetition. I looked at him and felt nothing. "You want me because I am the only one who ever stayed," I replied. "But you never chose me when it mattered. You chose her. Every time." He shook his head, tears brimming in his eyes. "I was blind. Foolish. I see it now." I sighed. "Julian, you do not get to break me 7 times and then ask me to put you back together. That is not love. That is selfishness." His face crumpled, but I turned away. For the first time, I left him standing there without even a trace of hesitation. That night, I realized the truth. My story with Julian had already ended. The chapter was closed, not because he said so, not because Avery left, but because I finally chose myself. As the seasons changed, so did I. My classes turned into opportunities. I was offered a managerial role at the cafe, then later a position at a larger company that valued my dedication and resilience. I moved into a better apartment, decorated with colors I loved, not the sterile elegance Julian once demanded. On my wall, I placed a calendar marked with important dates, not anniversaries of marriages and divorces, but milestones of my new life. The day I passed my first exam. The day I signed the lease for my new apartment. The day Maya and I took a spontaneous trip to the coast and watched the sunrise over the ocean. Each mark was a reminder, my life was mine now. Julian's attempts grew weaker with time. Another bouquet left at my doorstep, another message ignored. Eventually, the flowers stopped coming, the calls ceased. He faded into the background like a ghost who no longer had the power to haunt me. One evening, Maya asked me if I ever regretted it. "Regret what?" I asked. "Leaving him. Walking away from the life you thought you wanted." I thought about it carefully. "No," I said at last. "I regret staying as long as I did. But not leaving. Never leaving." And it was true. The final test of my resolve came unexpectedly. Almost a year after I left, I received an invitation to a gala in my new city. It was a networking event for professionals, something my company encouraged me to attend. I almost declined, but Maya convinced me to go. "It is time people see you as who you are now," she said. I wore a simple black dress, elegant but not extravagant. As I stepped into the grand hall, I felt a wave of confidence wash over me. I was not Julian's ex-wife here. I was Gemma, independent, accomplished, whole. And then, across the room, I saw him. Julian. He looked older, his once polished demeanor dulled by fatigue. His eyes widened when he saw me, and for a moment, the crowded room seemed to fall silent. He began to walk toward me, but before he could reach me, someone else approached. It was a colleague from my company, smiling warmly. "Gemma, there you are. I want to introduce you to some investors." I turned to follow, but not before glancing once more at Julian. Our eyes met. His lips parted as if to speak, but no words came. For the first time, I did not feel pain or anger. Only closure. I smiled politely, nodded, and then walked away. That was the last time I ever saw him. Months later, sitting on my balcony as the sun dipped below the horizon, I reflected on everything I had endured. 7 marriages. 7 divorces. 7 betrayals. Each one had left scars, but each scar told a story of survival. I was no longer the woman who begged for love, who clung to promises broken before they were even spoken. I was someone new. Someone stronger. And as the night settled over the city, I whispered to myself, "This time, I am free."